president is not alone in his criticism. Officials in Taiwan say the WHO ignored their early warnings about the virus. And some Japanese officials have even started calling the WHO the Chinese Health Organization. All right, let's bring in Jack Chow. He's a former Assistant Director General for the World Health Organization, who is now a professor at Carnegie Mellon University. Jack, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Jack. All right, Jack, the World Health Organization, as we said, coming under a lot of criticism for its response to COVID-19, not just from President Trump, though he certainly has been the most vocal. The president says that the UN agency got a lot of calls wrong here. He's also specifically honed in on how the World Health Organization condemned his moves to suspend travel from China in late January. Now, at the time, or shortly thereafter, the head of the World Health Organization said that the organization doesn't recommend limiting trade or travel to China. I just want to refresh your memory and play that soundbite for our viewers.
There is no reason for measures that unnecessarily interfere with international travel and trade. So WHO doesn't recommend limiting transfer or trade and movement.
All right, Jack, that's just one example. When the president says, look, the World Health Organization called it wrong, do you think that that is valid criticism?
Well, the WHO has a vital role to play in global health policy. It supplies vital medical intelligence. It has a situation room that coordinates the data, and it deploys many technical advisors around the world. Its recommendations are based on experiences from the past of fighting SARS, MERS, H1N1, and Ebola. And that accumulated wisdom is what WHO shares with the world as the best judgment that it has at that time. Now, here's a critical point. Here's a critical point. When they named this virus, they called it the novel coronavirus. It's a new species of virus whose behavioral characteristics was just being understood. So Dr. Tedros could speak for himself, but it seems to me that they were relying on a playbook that was based on past epidemics, and that was their best judgment to share at the time.
All right, so it doesn't sound as though you think that the criticism to not restrict travel and trade was founded, even though that has now been the case. Now, you mentioned China's past, or rather the World Health Organization focusing on the past. And a lot of emphasis has been said that given China's past of not being upfront with facts, like in the SARS outbreak, for example, that China should have been a lot more skeptical and should not have taken information from Chinese authorities at face value. And I want to remind you that on January 14th, the World Health Organization issued this tweet: preliminary investigations conducted by the Chinese authorities have found no clear evidence of human-to-human transmission of the novel coronavirus identified in Wuhan, China. And now we understand that they were waiting for information, but the point here is that they should perhaps have been more skeptical in the information that they got from China. And on the contrary, Dr. Tedros was quite vocal in praising China's efforts. In mid-February, he credited China with buying the world time to respond to this, even though China, in fact, delayed for weeks the approval of sending a World Health Organization team inside the country. So what do you say to the idea that the organization is too China-centric and wasn't sufficiently skeptical, especially considering past experiences?
Yeah, it's a great point, Michelle. I would just say that the work of WHO is relies heavily on the cooperation of the host country, and the quality of the data that is shared with WHO is the food for the analysis. And
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Jack, and I understand, and we're certainly not questioning the necessity for the World Health Organization, but rather its overly China-centric approach. I mean, was it necessary for Dr. Tedros to lavish praise on China as frequently as he did? And there are several quotes that I can pull out for you, but he seemed to be rather full of praise for the Chinese authorities and not sort of encapsulating some of the comments with what some would say would be the necessary skepticism.
Well, let's harken back. At that time, China was the world's epicenter for the disease, and that's where WHO sent its experts to collaborate and find out as much as it could from Chinese authorities. I think labeling the situation as China-centric is a bit fringed with hyperbole, because that was the center of the epidemic. That's analogous to saying that WHO and the Ebola crisis in West Africa was West Africa-centric. It just went to where the fire was burning, and that was in Wuhan, China.
Are you satisfied with the level of skepticism that the World Health Organization applied with regards to the information that it received from China? Are you satisfied, looking back as somebody that used to work with the organization, at the amount of time delay that China took before allowing World Health Organization teams into the country, refusing CDC teams into the country, taking foreign press out of the country? I mean, do you think that these are issues that the World Health Organization should have flagged and addressed and looked at differently, rather?
I believe that at some point in the future, when hopefully the epidemic has been abated and hopefully completely defeated, there will be a comprehensive review of not only WHO, but the international response as a whole. It is clear and evident that there are checkerboard vulnerabilities. There are missteps made by governments left and right, and WHO would. Dr. Tedros said that it's made up of professionals who are human beings, and human beings make mistakes. So I think the best time to address the deficiencies and gaps and abnormalities in the response will be at a time where we can see the entirety and the complexity of how this epidemic played out and how countries stepped up to the plate or struck out.
All right, fair enough. I mean, hindsight is, of course, 2020. But overall, do you think that the World Health Organization may have lost some credibility here?
It is certainly vulnerable to criticism like that of from President Trump and other leaders. I would just note that for decades, WHO has been underfunded, and much of the hiccups that have arisen could be traced to the underinvestment of the international community